Nothing wows like a shaker card. Hi, I'm Jessica Taylor from Ink It Up with Jessica, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to shake things up with shaker cards. My friend Joyce recently shared these fun shaker cards with me that she made using the Piece to You stamp set. Aren't they great? Let me know in the comments if you've ever made shaker cards before. Joyce's cards inspired me to make these two cards, also with the Piece to You stamp set. You can see how they have just a little bit of shake to them. That is really fun. So let's dive in with some tips for making shaker cards. Joyce used her paper cutter to cut her windows, but I am lazy, so I immediately knew that dies would be quicker and easier. I want to show you how to cut it with a paper cutter though, just in case you don't have dies that will work. So Joyce told me that she cut her piece of paper for the front of her cards to 3 3/4 inches by 4 3/4 inches. And she left 1/2 inch on these three sides and 3/4 inch down here around her window. So when we're cutting, we want to use our cutting blade, and I'm going to use the measurements on the paper cutter as well as this little mark on the side of my paper cutter. It's just a line that shows me where my cutting blade is. So for instance, I am going to start by cutting the top, and I want to start with this at 1/2 inch. Now, you see that most of my cardstock hangs off of this end. If I switch it here and measure 1/2 inch on this side, it's actually going to be sturdier and my paper will stay in place better. So because this is 3 3/4 inches wide and I want to leave 1/2 inch here, I'm going to start at 3 1/4 inches. So I'm just going to line up this side line of my paper cutter with the 3 3/4 inch line, push down, and then I'm just going to cut until I reach the 1/2 inch line. So the 1/2 inch line is here, and I'm going to bring it so this side line on my paper cutter matches up with the 1/2 inch line. So then I'll pick that up, and again, I'm going to measure 1/2 inch on this side. This makes it a little easier because I already made a cut, so I'm actually going to line that cut up with the side of my paper cutter. But because this is 4 3/4 inches long, that is going to line up at 4 1/4 if you want to use your measurement. So then I'll start there. And you can kind of see I didn't quite meet that, so I might just want to shimmy it up a tiny bit. This is where dies also make it more precise. And then I want to leave 3/4 inch over here. So then I'm going to switch it again, and I want 3/4 inch on this side, so I have room for the greeting if I want to put it on there. And then you can match it up with your line or with 3/4 inches. And then I'm going to cut down to the 1/2 inch again. It's a little bit harder to see with the stark paper. And then I'll turn it, measure at 1/2 inch, and then I'm just going to cut from this line to this line. Now you might have to go in with your paper snips a little bit and get those final corners. Also, if you like to be super precise, this is probably not the method for you because you see I kind of like cut a little bit far in there. But that is how you can cut a window for your shaker cards if you don't have dies. If you do have dies that you want to use to cut your window, you're going to want to figure out what shape you want and what size. So I find it easiest to first stamp the image I want inside of my shaker card, especially when it's something like this that is larger and I want to cover the edges of it. Sometimes if you have just like words or more of a smaller image that's going to be in the inside, it doesn't matter quite so much, but for this one it does. I'm going to use my Stamparatus with my Piece to You stamp set from Stampin' Up to stamp this church image. Because it's bold, I find it stamps better if I stamp it twice. It just looks a lot better. So I have just cut my basic white cardstock to 3 1/2 inches by 4 1/4 inches. And I have set it up on here so that I can push it up against this edge, line it up with this edge, and then put my magnet down here at the bottom to hold it in place. You're going to want more white space at the bottom of this image for sure, so you have room for the shaker to come all the way down kind of across there. So I'm going to ink this up with Starry Sky ink. So I'll just hold the ink pad in my hand and rub it over kind of tap it over the stamp until it's really good and inked up. And then I'll bring that over and just kind of rub my fingers across it. And the longer that you hold it in place, it gives the ink a chance to soak into your cardstock, so you'll get a better image. So that's okay, but not great. I'm not sure why it gave me that weird loop, but I'm gonna just ink this up again. Bring that over, make sure I'm smoothing it all down, and this should hopefully give me a nice dark image for my shaker card. I think that looks great. If you're not quite satisfied with it yet, you can go a third time. Like, I do have a little bit lighter spots. I'm okay with that. That's how the night looks. It's got some shades to it. So once I have the image that I want inside of my shaker card, I grabbed some dies and started holding them over the image to see what would fit. So the largest square actually fits perfectly. You'll notice that on my shaker card, I did move the square down just a little bit because I want more white to show here for like the snow shaker stuff inside to kind of land down there. But you'll see that that fits very nicely in there. I also wanted to try the circle. It's kind of hard to tell because the actual circle where it cuts out is in the middle of the die, but you can see it's like just hitting the edges. So I did cut one out to show you that when I layer this over, there's just gonna be a little bit of white there. You can take your Starry Sky or whatever color marker and just color this little white part right here with the blue, and it'll look totally fine. If you want to do a circle, that is possible. The other shape that I really liked was this new oval die. This is from the Framed Florets set, and even though it cuts off part of that image, I just really like the oval shape. So once you've picked the die that you want to use, you can die cut. I'm using the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, so I'm going to use my number 1 platform, number 2, and then a number 3 plate. And then I'm not actually going to cut out my image. I have another piece of paper that I have cut that is 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches, and this is just basic white. And I want to kind of center my die this way and leave just a little bit at the top and more room at the bottom so I can stamp my greeting down here. So if you want to, you can use a Post-it note to hold this into place. I'm just gonna go for it and see what happens. I'm gonna add a number 3 on top of that and just roll it on through. So then you can see I've cut the window for my shaker card. I did get a little close at the top because you wanna make sure that you have enough room there for a foam strip. And then if you stick around to the end, I'll show you what I made with these pieces. Okay, so next I'm gonna add my window sheet to the back side. It actually doesn't really matter, both sides are pretty much the same. But I'm gonna take my window to the back of this. The window sheets from Stampin' Up! Come in 12 by 12 sheets, so you just cut it down to the size you want. It also just has this tissue paper on, kind of to protect it, also so that you can see it. Otherwise, because it's clear, sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle. So I'm gonna add seal adhesive to the back of this piece so I can get right up close to that oval, but not put tape like on my window sheet where I don't want it. So I'm just gonna go around here. Use the adhesive of your choice. If you prefer glue, use glue. I like a double-sided tape, although I'm kind of making a mess with it right now. I swear, everything is easier when you're not on video, but it makes it more interesting, right? Okay, so I just went all the way around there. This piece does come down a little bit more, so maybe just put a little there. Okay, so then I'm just gonna put that right over so it covers my window, like so. And actually, before I did that, I should have stamped my greeting because there's nothing worse than stamping your greeting and messing it up, which I'm gonna do because of that. That's okay. We're gonna make it happen. So I'm gonna use Starry Sky, and I'm gonna use the Piece to You at Christmas that comes in that set. And because I am not confident in my eyeballing at the moment, This is a really old tool called a Stamp-A-Majig that is no longer available from Stampin' Up, but I love it and still use it all the time. You basically put this sheet in the corner and then stamp your stamp right there. And then I can move this over here and put my greeting right where I want it. Put that back on the corner, move that, stamp that there, and look, it's right where I want it. Okay, well, I have my tape out. I'm going to tape my scene to the front of my card. What I want to make sure is that when I layer this over top and center it, that my scene is going to be where I want it to be. And see, it's too far down. I'm actually going to trim a little bit off the top of this. And I know I can trim it right to the top of that because it's going to be covered up like so. That looks perfect. I'm going to add some tape to the back of this. And then I'm going to make sure that this is where I want it in my shaker card, because when I put this on top, I want to make sure that this is kind of centered. So I'll go like that. There we go. Okay, next I'm going to use some foam strips, and this is going to make this piece stand up higher and hold the shaker bits in. So you want to make sure that you add the foam strip all around the shape because you don't want holes for the shaker bits to fall through. And also I kind of want them to stay in the scene. So I'm going to start up here and I'm going to just nudge my foam strip so that it fits the shape of the oval. And I want it to be pretty close because I want my shaker pieces to be seen at all times. I don't want them to disappear down into my card. So I'm just going to go pretty close around this oval. And these already have adhesive on them, which is super nice. Oh, and I have plenty of room up here, which is great. Okay, so it's bending a little bit. That's okay. I'm going to need to grab one more strip. And then again, you want to make sure that when you're using more than one strip, that the ends are really fitting together nicely so that, again, your shaker bits don't fall out. I'm just going to use some paper snips to cut that right there. And that should be good. Now, another thing is when you're putting this on the front of your card, there's no foam down here or on the corners. So I'm just going to put a little extra there. So I'm just going to put some foam across the bottom, maybe a piece up here, maybe a piece or two, because I just want to make sure that this piece stands up and looks nice. Oops. Shooting pieces across the room, and then because I have this left, I'm just going to cut it in half and put part of it here and part of it here. So that should be good. So the shaker that I'm going to use for this card is Sparkle and Shine Sequins from Stampin' Up. When I went to use these the first time, they were really sticking to me. I had a lot of static cling, so they were sticking to my fingers and they were sticking to my window. So a couple of things that you can try if you have static. First, the embossing buddy. This has just a powder in it that you can rub. Sometimes it's nice to push it kind of up against your foam strips in case there's any sticky kind of hanging about. You don't want your sequins to be sticking to that. So you can rub that. That did not totally work for me. And so I went and grabbed my husband's anti-static spray that he uses for his work clothes. And I just sprayed some of that on a paper towel and use that to wipe my window sheet. You'll also notice the embossing buddy left some powder there. This kind of cleans it up. So you can try one or the other or both depending on what you have access to. And then that just dries really quick. So some people put the shaker stuff right in here and then put this card on top, but because I want to be able to center this over top of my scene and center it within my card, I'm going to do it that way. My window is dirty now, so I'm just going to take my paper towel and wipe it off again. And it actually might be the other side that's dirty. Once you use glitter, it is everywhere, and so I think it's on this sheet here. All right, so then I'm gonna go like this. On the cards that I made, this one I just used this sequin kind of filler. On this one, I used the sequin filler, but I also added in a dash of Dazzling Diamonds glitter. Now, Stampin' Up! Hasn't had it for years, but I have been hoarding a little bit of it. And so I love how that just shimmers and shines. So if you have some glitter that you can throw in there, you can add that. You can use little cardstock bits, confetti, whatever you have that's little and will shake around. So I'm just gonna add a few sprinkles of this. Now, you might want to add more, you might want to add less. It might be how much you love the person. It's totally up to you. I'm gonna add a little bit more in this one. And then you can see it's still kind of sticking to my fingers. Try to get that in the card. Or put it back in, whatever, however I can get it off my fingers. Let's close that up before I dump it all over. Okay, so now I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna remove, I better do it to this side. I'm gonna remove the backing from all of these foam strip sheets. And see it, I just got a sequin down there. I'll put that back over here, try to. Perhaps I should have bathed in static spray before I started this card. Almost there. Okay, so once I have all of that off, again, I just want to make sure that all of my joints are good and stuck together. Then I'm going to very carefully center this over my card front. And then kind of press down on the foam strip so I know it's in place. And I have a shaker card. So here is the non-glitter version versus the glitter version. One note is that shaker cards will probably require extra postage when you mail them because they're thicker and you'll want them hand canceled to protect them. So you don't want them to get too squished up so that they'll still shake. But let's be honest, these are the types of cards that we make for people that we really, really love. So they're worth the extra postage. Okay, so here are a few more cards that I made with the same supplies and the windows that I cut out for these shaker cards. So here's the shaker card, and when I cut out that oval, I got two pieces, a plain white oval and then this oval frame. So I just stamped that same church inside of it and made this card. There's also some snowflakes embossed in the background. When I made the square shaker card, the square that popped out, I stamped that same church and then my greeting right underneath it. And then I love how this is Silent Night, Holy Night, and I embossed music behind it. These are all in Starry Sky. And then this, I did not use any of the same dye supplies. I just was loving this color combination, so I kept going with it. This is actually the decal dyes, decal frame dyes maybe. I'm not sure what they're called. But I will have all of the details about all of these cards on my blog at the link in the description below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe for more card making videos. Thanks for watching.